broadcast.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا محمد. We are on Surah Luqman, Surah number 31, and ayah number 16. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا بني إنها إن تك مثقال حبة من خردل فتكن في صخرة أو في السماوات أو في الأرض يأت بها الله إن الله لطيف خبير. Continuing with the advice that Luqman is giving to his son, he explains to him the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how far-reaching it is, and that Allah's knowledge is at the level of universals, principles, and also
the broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Of life in this world and also in the akhirah. So Allah's knowledge is all comprehensive. It reaches everything that exists when it exists, and human beings must not be amazed that Allah has knowledge of particulars and details. In Muslim history, there have been groups of people who said that Allah has knowledge of the universals, but not of details. So Allah knows what's going to happen to this person eventually, in short form, but not in long form with the details that occur in this person's life every day. So this ayah would disprove that misunderstanding very quickly. Luqman is saying this to his young boy so that the young boy knows and understands the might and power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that he remains aware of His presence wherever he is and however he is. O my son, indeed, if there was a weight of grain of a mustard seed that resides in a rock, or in the heavens or in the earth, Allah will bring it forth. Allah has knowledge of it. Allah knows about it, and so on. So when you see a speck that is somewhere concealed in a rock in a desert, and no one knows about it, not even the ant or any insect or anything there, in the desert, outside of the rock, inside of the rock, Allah knows about it. Allah brings it out into the open. Allah knows everything there is to know, because He created it. The underlying message is that Allah is the creator of everything, therefore He knows everything, how they are, where they are, and whichever shape, form, and so on. Indeed, Allah is subtle and aware. So you can see the intensity with which Luqman is educating, indoctrinating, bringing discipline to his son's mind and his thinking. That this level of training when children are young is necessary. And we must go through a process, a system, a curriculum that allows the young mind to process, understand, appreciate, and believe in these fine details of Allah's eternal reach. Allah's eternal reach is everywhere. And once a young person knows that, and God knows everything there is to know, then he will seek knowledge through applying God's now process and procedure and rules and regulations, and then say, okay, this is one way to make sure I know enough about me and my surroundings, my environment, and what I need to do in life, and so on. The denial of God's knowledge, obviously, is tantamount to kufr. We cannot say God does not know. So we must be careful that we explain to ourselves and to our family members, Allah knows, and that's the end of the story. Period. Allah knows, period. Yeah, you don't necessarily need to go into a theological construct to explain this, justify this. It is very simple. You believe because that is what we believe in. Then the idea that the side, okay, where it becomes a slippery slope, is where now human beings start to ask questions. If God knows what I'm going to do now, then why test me and why punish me? Right, which we've discussed many times before. If He knows what I'm going to do today, then why is He saying that you must do this today? What's the point? The point is because He is our examiner. He is our examiner. He is testing us. We're not testing Him. That's the point. God knows. Do you know? So when you're training someone and you're a coach, or you're teaching somebody and you're the teacher, you know from whatever the student in front of you is saying or doing or not doing, that this one, he's going to fail. But that doesn't mean to say you don't administer the test. So that's how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. Allah knows all details, but He will continue to administer the test so that on the day of judgment, you will not come back to Him and say, you didn't give me a test. How are you now going to justify auditing my actions and, God forbid, even punishing me if there was no test in the first place? This is the test. So Allah's knowledge is absolute. Ours is not. Allah is testing us on our knowledge, not on His. So you make that distinction. So God is somewhere. He is absolute, supreme, mighty and powerful. You are nothing. Who are you? So you don't know what you're going to do today or tomorrow, but you will be tested every day, wherever you are, whoever you are. So Allah's test for mankind is indiscriminate, and He has placed us in this world in time and space so that we are tested every day. We don't know the outcome, Allah knows, but the test is for us, not for Him. Right? Who is being tested? Us or Allah? So we are being tested. So the test makes sense to us and for us, not for Him. Inna Allah Al-Lateef Al-Khabeer. Here Luqman brings in now this theism and this theology of understanding Allah's names and attributes, which is fundamental for all Muslims to appreciate. Nowadays people, they get stuck into the nitty-gritty details of do's and don'ts and whether or not this is a sahih hadith or whatnot. They never try to understand who Allah is. Allah is removed totally from the equation of Islam. The only point is the Sahih Hadith. Their only focus and concern. But who is Allah? The only time they discuss Allah is to fight. What is the meaning of Ar-Rahman ala al-Arsh istawa? The Rahman, He sits on His throne. And they start the discussion to fight about it. Not to draw closer to Allah, which is the purpose of revelation. The purpose of revelation is to draw closer to the one who reveals. To appreciate who He is and how He works. That's the purpose. The purpose is not that you discuss these very high level, sophisticated theological dialectics and polemics, which should be reserved only for those who are in the field, not outside of the field. And they did that for reasons that you may not appreciate. They didn't do it because they wanted you to discuss these things. So Luqman is saying to his son, Inna Allah Al-Lateef Al-Khabeer. Indeed Allah is Lateef. Allah is very sublime, very subtle. There's no form, shape or figure for God, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but He is Lateef, very sublime. the sublimity and the subtlety and the subtleness with which Allah now operates in the universe must be appreciated. Allah is Al-Lateefun bi'ibadihi yarzuqu man yasha. Allah is very lateef. Inna Rabbi lateefun lima yasha. Allah is very subtle, meaning that things do not happen all the time or ever the way you want them to happen, and they definitely don't happen overnight. So that subtlety, that if you were to put a photograph, a camera, in front of how your plant now grows in your own home, and you have this ability to see how time is slowed down, then you'll see that it's very subtle. Is there a way to now make this process work faster? There is, but then you'll be distorting nature, right? And that you'll be destroying everything around it, and with it, and through it. So the fetus grows in the mother's womb over 9-10 months. That's subtlety, right? And when the baby is delivered, the human being, takes its sweet time to develop. Right? The teeth don't come with it, and they don't start walking on their 2 feet as soon as they come out. Other animals do. We don't. That's the Al-Lateef, that's the subtlety with which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings everything into creation. So now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to raise a Nabi. And the last Nabi, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, so what does he do? Does he send him down like the perfect human being, perfect creation? Or does he go through the same process of being conceived and delivered, and then being fed, and then weaned, and being raised somewhere, and then being brought back, and then becoming an orphan, and all of that? That's subtlety. There's a process. This process to us seems very slow, which is okay, because this is where we are, how we are. For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is very quick. So Luqman is saying to his son that God knows everything there is to know. And number two, that when He knows how to plan, to arrange, how to govern, how to administer, and how to bring things into creation and then to their terms over time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is able to do everything, but everything comes through a Nidzaam and a system, and you must appreciate that if I believe that God knows everything, then why doesn't He do what I want Him to do? Right? I have a problem. So I'm asking God, so why doesn't He tell me, okay, do this, do this? You know, God knows, you say to Allah, you know where the cure is. So send me to the cure, bring the cure to. It doesn't work that way. He's Lateef. He won't change because you want Him to do something. That the Nidzaam won't change. Allah doesn't change, period. But the Nidzaam, the system with which Allah creates, will not change simply because human beings are close to Him in this world and they know everything there is to know about Him in this world and so on. He will always be what He is. Lateef, very subtle. So the way we as human beings want to train ourselves and others also that we have to keep this in mind, that a plan must be something that you can execute within 1 year or 5 years or 10 years or 15 years. You can't get ahead of yourselves. We want the whole world to become Muslim, and see where that got us the past 100 years. Right? It doesn't happen that way. You can't be a revolutionary and say, we're going to bring revolution. No. You'll be killed before you do that, which is what happened. Right? So these overnight reactionary movements to everything that's happening in the world out of frustration, anger, and a fight against God Himself. Right? So the anger is not only just towards Muslims, the anger is against God Himself. So Allah says through Luqman, He knows everything. If He knows that very, very small mustard seed inside a rock that is in a desert that nobody knows whether it exists or not, both the desert and the rock, and the thing inside the rock, then don't you think he knows what's happening to the ummah? Sure he does. So then why isn't there no change? Because you're not following the rules of change that God wants you to follow. Follow those rules and you might see some change. And it's not overnight. You need extreme patience in order to bring about change within a human context. And that is where the word Khabeer comes in. Khabeer, outside of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, means someone who's experienced, someone who is wise, someone who knows how to do things in time and space. Khabeer and Khubra. Right? All of you know this. Khabeer is someone who's an expert in the Arabic language. So someone who has Khubra, which is training and experience, is able to now tell you that in 5 years this is going to happen. In 10 years this is going to happen. In 50 years this is going to happen. So they use their hikmah, their mature knowledge, to tell and then to enforce and execute what plan they have. But if your plan is to execute tomorrow, then that means you're not a khabeer. Because you don't have lutf, you don't have sublimity, you don't have subtlety. So you must be able to walk this through a process. And people, when they see something happening very slowly, they're usually very impatient and they can't handle the pace. It's too slow. And then they insert their jahal, their ignorance and their impatience on others who want to take things slowly. It's very subtle, and just as the plant is not going to grow that quickly overnight, the plant will be there, and your children will say, "Why isn't it growing?" Right? Then all of a sudden, 2 weeks later, it's growing. How did that happen? We didn't see it. That's a subtlety. You're not supposed to see it. When you want to visualize everything, and you want to perceive everything through your 5 senses all the time, and you want to objectify and quantify everything, then that's where the problem is. You cannot quantify the progress of human beings only against economic standards or political standards or social standards. You have to quantify that according to the standards of Nubuwwah and Risala. This is what Luqman is saying to his son. Allah knows everything, and if you want to engage in the world, then you're going to have to be patient, because that is what subtlety requires. You're subtle about it. You're not in your face all the time. You're not shouting and screaming at people, "We want this, we want this." That's not how Allah wants you to work. He doesn't work that way. He wants you to work this way. When you have, God forbid, an injury, and you want the injury to now heal as a professional athlete. So someone's injured, and next week there's a Super Bowl. I want my injury to heal by next week. It ain't going to happen. That's tough luck. That process is not going to change because you want it to change. There's a subtlety in the way Allah has enforced His Nidzaam and His system here, and that comes with the understanding of khubra, experience. So Allah is always here, so He has knowledge eternally, and Allah's experience is also eternal. But these are the two values of a human being as parents, because we can't expect our children to grow overnight. I hope not. As soon as the baby comes out, he should be a mature, beautiful human being at the age of 18, ready to go, change the world. They ain't happening. Be a misfit. People will kill him and you both if that ever happens. And I want him to do everything, learn all the names of Allah before he comes out from the womb, and then be the next Abdul Qadir Jilani by the age of 7. That ain't happening. It ain't happening to anybody. Be the next Abu Hanifa, change the world. We want to develop leaders. We've tried for 100 years. You haven't developed anyone. Why? Because you got the formula wrong. The formula is not to create leaders, the formula is to create followers of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's the formula. That's the subtlety, that's the latafa that came through the mashayikh. We're not here to lead, we're here to follow. You get that paradigm right, then you'll see leaders. Why? Because they won't seek leadership. That's the formula. Lateef, latafa, it has to be subtle. So now that's in the leadership of those who know Allah and understand some aspects of His names and attributes, the asma and sifat. So invariably in most ayat of the Quran, Allah brings about at the end of every ayah, most of the ayahs that end with His names and attributes. Inna Allah Lateef Al-Khabeer. So the ulama say that if you want to understand the ayah, understand the names at the end of the ayah, if they are there, which everybody ignores. They'll read it, but they don't comment on it. This is the proof in the pudding. The proof in the pudding is that our masajid filled with people, or our madaris filled with, our schools, are they successful? Are Muslims contributing to mainstream America? Are Muslims there in the White House? That's the proof in the pudding. So the ulama say no. The proof in the pudding is that how much do Muslims know about how Allah works? So here Luqman is saying to his son, Inna Allah Lateef Al-Khabeer. Allah is very lateef. He is eternally lateef, subtle, sublime, and He is eternally knowledgeable and aware of everything that human beings do and how they think, etc. So make sure if you want to go out into the community and society and live a good life, that you remember who Allah is. Change will not come overnight, and don't expect change to come overnight. That is against the Nidzaam and the system of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then obviously, how long shall we wait? How long could we wait? It is overbearing, overwhelming. That's what Allah wants. Wait as long as you know Allah is with you. Inna Allah Lateef Al-Khabeer. يا بني أقم الصلاة وأمر بالمعروف وانهى عن المنكر واصبر على ما أصابك إن ذلك من عزم الأمور. Now the actual formula for life, Luqman now gives to his son. First is the aqeedah that Allah knows everything, along with understanding, appreciating that life is about subtlety, and life is about being aware of who you are, what you are, and where you are, etc. Then the next formula is, O my son, establish prayer. Make sure you know that prayer is important in your life. That is an aqeedah issue, primarily an issue that you believe salat has value to you. If you pray, it's for you. And if you establish salat in your mind, it's for you. And this is a rule for you and for your success that you must observe as being integral to your being and your existence. Salat, meaning that your belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and belief that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provides for you, and belief in that you worship Allah, and belief in that if you worship Allah through salat, Allah will give you as a means of nusrah. That nusrah comes through salat, that I want to be close to my Maker, and the only way you can be close to your Maker is through salat, the prescribed form of ibadah and worship which comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you get into the unprescribed or the non-prescribed methods of worship, or whatever it is that you want to do, then they may not yield the same barakah as salat does. You may have a subjective experience that when I do this, this happens, but that subjective experience is not guaranteed on two levels. One is acceptance and the other is najat. Will Allah accept your salat if you follow the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Yes. Will it be a means for your najat? Yes. But the other methods, are they accepted? Maybe, maybe not. Are they going to guarantee your najat and salvation when you meet Allah? No. So they may be subjective, but they cannot be made a standard. Salat now becomes the standard form of worship for all human beings. And Luqman is saying this to his son, that make sure that you do want to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it must come from you, from within you, and it must be done the way that Allah wants you to worship Him. And the benefits of that is in you, and through you, and with you. We've all heard many lectures on Salat, many times before. وَأْمُرْ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. So the first component is your religious inclination and your devotion, dedication to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That this is your spiritual nourishment that you need. The second is your participation in society. So you must make time for God, and you must make time for you and others both. Not just your religious values, but also your social values must be in line with what is known as ma'roof. وَأْمُرْ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. Command and enjoy that which is known to be good, known by people who are pious, not known by people who are impious. That's the standard, right? People who do their salat, and people who express their interest in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and people who are devout worshippers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and those who want to follow a pious life, they should know that this is good, and that will be a standard definition of al-ma'ruf for this purpose anyway, for this discussion. وَأْمُرُ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. Command and enjoin that which is ma'ruf, things that are known to be good, things that have a value to you and to others, to society and human beings in general. Here the underlying discussion is whether or not this ma'ruf is what the Sharia says is ma'ruf, or kind and good, or is it something else, another standard which is universal. That discussion, as I said, is not for us, it's for those who discuss it, where they discuss it. Ma'ruf here means that is known in the minds of people who are pious, that this is good. Now, you say, in today's society, everybody thinks every sin is good. It doesn't, and it's also known, ma'ruf. We say, no, that's not the standard. The standard is that you follow those who want to be close to Allah, and they want to do good deeds and service to other human beings also. That will be that which is good. At a societal level. In the mainstream American context, you're going to go out there and say, I want to enjoin that which is good now. There are many values that people in this community, in this society, also value as being good. And should we participate? Here Luqman is saying to his son, yes. Participate in that which is good. Good in whose eyes? First in Allah's eyes, the Rasul's eyes, the people of the community who know that this is pious and this is good. In that sense, yes. So if there's an agenda out there in society, there's a town hall meeting, and you know that what they're discussing is good, then there should be some participation from some Muslims, that they go there, engage. That's their societal duty. You can't afford to say we should isolate ourselves. Right? That doesn't work. And that hurts us more than helps us. Yeah. I'm not saying everybody goes, because first of all, the room won't be big enough. When Muslims are invited, you need a capacity of 1,000 people. And those town hall meetings are designed for 60 people. Right? So there should be a reasonable representation of Muslims there. 1 person, 2 people, 5 people, whatever the community decides. But there has to be a representation wherever you are in any society, that you're actually concerned about this ma'ruf. This is good. We don't want higher taxes. We don't want property taxes. You live in a subdivision, mashallah, and then your taxes go high, and then you're not there on the board, or you don't go to those meetings, and then you still complain. Right? That doesn't work. You have to be part and parcel of that process as ma'ruf. Right? Someone should be, 1 person. But you have to be concerned enough to say that we should represent, or we should present somebody there to be on our behalf, so that this ma'ruf, and people see yourselves as visible. So visibility is needed at that level. Town hall meetings and local governments and so on. Without that, there's no real hope for Muslims to be seen as being mainstream. Right. The only time you go to a congressman or a senator is that the issue of Palestine comes up. Right? I'm not saying Palestine issue is not important, it's very important. But to people who don't know you, and the only time they see you is, God forbid, there's something out there in a foreign country that they really have no interest in, and you go and talk to them at that time, what about this? I don't know. Come to the next town hall meeting, we'll discuss it. But in your town hall meetings, you don't discuss foreign policy, but that's the point. That is the point. You're not visible where you need to be visible. You're not doing amr bil ma'roof. This is not ma'roof, what you're doing. Okay, this is a vested interest, and nobody likes anyone who has vested interests. To say that, do this for me. You don't get a free lunch in America. You have to work for it. Wa'mur bil ma'roof means that be part of societal discussions where the value is good. For us, alhamdulillah, through the Quran and Sunnah, we know what ma'roof is. So for us, it's a no-brainer. That people are saying that we should not have drugs on the streets. Then be part of that ma'roof and say, yes, we don't want drugs on the streets. No, I'm saying not everybody in this room should go. One person should go. Well, somebody should go. Be part of that conversation so that you follow what Luqman is saying. Now, Luqman is only saying what the other ayat of the Quran are saying. كُنْتُمْ خَيْرَ أُمَّةٍ أُخْرِجَتْ لِلنَّاسِ تَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. That ayah that many people quote all the time, mashallah, is also saying the same thing, that there should be some enjoinment, instruction of ma'roof, goodness and kindness somewhere, not just when you want to react against someone who doesn't like you because you're Muslim. Then nobody will listen to you. They'll just say, okay, fine, whatever. So that the neighborhood participation is necessary. Participation maybe at the workplace would also fall into this. Participation in your local government would also be part of it, and participation in the national affairs also would be part of it. But it has to be done as a sense of duty. That I, as a Muslim, I need to be here. If you're working somewhere, in an office, corporation, hospital, school, then be part of that administration in as much as you voice your opinion. Don't just be simple-minded consumer of the job. So Luqman is saying to the son, your salat is not enough for you to be seen as a good Muslim. Your salat is your own piety, your religiosity. May you go to the masjid, mashallah, Allah accept and give you more. Nur and ajr. That's fine. But outside of the masjid, outside of your own, mashallah, prayer area in your home, other people must know you have ma'roof in you. You have goodness in you. You have kindness in you. That has to be visible. This is why Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, as he came into Medina, that afshu salam and wa'at'imu ta'am. Do the ma'roof. Yeah. That spread the word assalamu alaikum, and then also feed people, because that's ma'roof. And he didn't say feed the Muslims, because there are a few Muslims there. He was saying feed people, at'imu ta'am, whoever they are, feed. Because when people see that you are visible and you have something to offer to the community, society, then they will see, okay, why are these people this way? And they will ask you, why do this? So you will say, because my Rasul said so. That's the key. Don't say because we want to. It's a good thing to do. It's the right thing to do. It's politically correct. Say no. I'm doing this because my Rasul said so. Then say, who is your Rasul? This is my Rasul. Right? The approach has to be correct. Yeah. If you go with the humanistic approach, then that only gets you so far. If you go with the Rasul of being a follower, of the Sunnah, then that'll get you everywhere, in this world and the world hereafter. So Luqman is saying to his son, be religious and then be social also. Now, you don't do it every day. That's not the reason why you exist. 24/7, you're only thinking about being here and there, everywhere. You don't want to be a political butterfly, a social butterfly, academic butterfly. No. Within reason. If there's ma'roof, then inform people this is ma'roof. وَنْهَا عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ. And if there's munkar, the opposite of ma'roof, that which has been detested, okay, and rejected by most pious people. Munkar. Now, for us, as I said, we have the luxury of the Sharia, so we know what is munkar. in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we go out there and say, this is wrong. There's drunk driving. That's a step closer to saving humanity. We don't believe in the drunk part. Okay, period. Right? We don't believe in alcohol, but at least it gets you so far. No. We shouldn't allow people who are drunk to drive. So that you must have a voice. In the town hall, in the village, there's something there that is, they're discussing, and it's to curb crime. You must be visible. There's something there that is not good for the community. As I said, tax is something, you must be there as a munkar. This is not good. You must voice your opinion, but you must voice your opinion where it matters and where it counts. Forbid people and complain about it. And this is active participation in mainstream society, where Luqman is saying to his son, make sure you have a voice. If you don't know or like something, say so. And if you like something, say so. And if you don't like something, say so. At whichever level it is. You complain about your food in your canteen or your cafe in your workplace. Right? Then say so. I'm not saying do it with agenda all the time, with a chip on your shoulder. You must come naturally. It must be this way. It's very flowing, it's very normal for you to speak about what is ma'ruf and what is munkar. Make it part of your DNA, make it part of your identity, without preaching. Without doing what? Preaching. You mustn't preach. Say this is ma'ruf and this is munkar. So that every society has its way and method of processing what is ma'ruf and what is munkar. But the Quran emphasizes that this is necessary for the child to appreciate and to realize before he or she goes out into the community and society and everything else. We do it at different levels, and we do it sometimes with the wrong agenda and sometimes with a very, very wrong, erroneous paradigm. Here Luqman is saying to his son that it must be that you are fulfilling your covenant with Allah as far as your salaat goes, and fulfilling your covenant with Allah as far as your social participation. The idea of giving da'wah perhaps at a nightclub, it doesn't fit the bill. Okay? We must participate in that. That is munkar to begin with. Don't expect to convert people in a nightclub because they'll convert you as soon as you walk in. Right? That's silly. And that's why I'm saying that the paradigm sometimes is wrong. It's off track. It's all bid'ah. So be careful that before you go out into these places that are suspicious, make sure you know it's right for you to go out there. But at a very mundane level, don't underestimate the value of speaking at a mundane level, where it's not strictly Islamic. Muslims more often than not have a chip on their shoulder. We must do something for the sake of da'wah. Maybe do something because Allah wants you to do it, not for the sake of da'wah. Right? Do you do prayer because you're giving da'wah? No. You pray because Allah wants you to pray. Is that true? I'm establishing salat in my home and I make my son give the adhan. I'm going to close all the drapes and the windows so that no one hears, but I'm giving da'wah. Doesn't make any sense. So the mind has to be correct, that you do things because Allah wants you to do, number one. Number two, that you do it the way the Sharia allows you to do. So there will be occasions where you will not be allowed to participate by Sharia, then concede. Don't knock your head against the brick wall and say, no, we should do ma'ruf and munkar, so therefore Sharia must allow this. But it doesn't allow you to do that. You cannot be part of a mass service where people are lamenting the deceased and say, well, Sharia wants us to participate in the grief of these people. Yes, but it doesn't allow you to pray with them. Right? It doesn't allow you. That is munkar. So don't do that. Concede. Forget about it. No. I'll go afterwards. When the mass is over. When the funeral service is over. And I'll give my condolences. That's fine. Okay? But to force yourself into the discussion, Sharia must allow this because this is what we're supposed to do in this community. No. It's not about this community. It's about making yourselves visible to others that you are here and you're there for the occasion, and also making sure that you don't compromise with your values. Right? That's the idea. If you get this right, then life in America will be good. So, if you attend Christmas parties where there's booze and whatever, you know much more than I do. It's not, this is dawah. No, brother, it's not dawah. This is you trying to justify your pleasure. Don't bring Islam into it. You want to go have a good time, that's up to you. Don't say, I'm giving dawah. That's never going to happen. Right? So if you say that this will bring me business, even that's tolerated. I'm not saying it's halal. Okay, this makes sense. You'll have more business if you do that. You might climb the ladder, the corporate ladder, if you do so. But don't say that I'm going as a Muslim to give the dawah, that I want to be present there. No. It's to distinguish the two. You do it because Allah wants it, and you know Allah doesn't want you to be there at that time. So why are you going? When people come and ask for fatwas, can we do this? You know what's in your heart. I don't need to give you a fatwa because you know the answer already. You're trying to justify your presence there in the name of Islam. So you can't halalify everything that's haram. You can't put an Islamic label on something you do because you want to do it. That's not how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to behave. This is why then Luqman is saying, وَاصْبِرْ عَلَى مَا أَصَابَكَ. Whatever comes upon you, then be patient. If there are times and occasions where you can't do al-amru bil-ma'ruf wal-nahyu 'anil munkar, then see it as a test. Bear the burden of the test and refrain, abstain. Don't succumb to the pressure. Be patient. عَلَى مَا أَصَابَكَ. Whatever comes upon you, whatever Allah decides to send upon you as a test. Don't say that we should do this because we are required to do this as Muslims in this community. That doesn't work. There's no barakah in that. And the effects will show on you, on your family very quickly. That's one aspect of this part of the ayah. The other is that if people say things to you while you're doing al-amru bil-ma'ruf wal-nahyu 'anil munkar, then be patient. Because people will say things. And so, I disagree with you because this policy is wrong. So now they'll disagree with you. You have a right to disagree, they have a right to disagree. And their disagreements may be very offensive. So be patient. And if they don't agree with you, that's fine too, but at least do what you can do, because that is your contribution to the change. Your contribution to the change sometimes is just that you know is wrong. Unfortunately nowadays, Muslims have lost that also. The Muslims no longer feel that what people do in mainstream America is wrong. They see everything as ma'ruf, not munkar. And they go with that. So that if that's removed from the hearts, then there's no iman left, as Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, وَذَلِكَ أَضْعَفُ الْإِيمَانِ. The lowest level of iman is that you know that it is wrong in your heart. And if you stop knowing, or you stop believing is wrong, then that is a curse. Once you believe or subscribe to something that is totally munkar, like the issue of certain types of marriages, right? And you concede, oh, maybe we should think about this again, then that is the end of the road for you. You have no iman left. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Man ra'a minkum munkaran falyughayyirhu biyadihi." That the munkar, if you see something as munkar, then you should change it with your actions, with your hands. فَإِن لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ فَبِقَلْبِهِ. And if you can't do that, at least through your tongue. فَإِن لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ فَبِقَلْبِهِ. And if you can't do the tongue, or the words and the statements, and your writing, and your complaining, etc., emails and mass communication, whatever, social media, at least with your heart. Okay? Make sure in your heart you know it's wrong. Because if you know in your heart it's wrong, then that will have an impact on you and your children, that you're telling your children this is wrong. We can't do anything about it, but it's wrong. And if you don't have that, then you don't have iman, period. وَذَلِكَ أَضْعَفُ الْإِيمَانِ. This is the weakest level of iman. Allah protects the same as all. So now, this is وَاصْبِرْ عَلَى مَا أَصَابَكَ. You'll have to be patient. People will not like you for your values and for your beliefs, and if you say them, then you expect that people will not embrace you very quickly. They'll say that you're this and that. Wasbir, be patient. So patience now is at two levels. One is the level of making sure that nothing haram is committed in the process of ma'ruf and munkar. And number two, that if there is such a test, God forbid, then be patient and bear the test. Don't succumb to the idea, I don't want to do this anymore. Nothing works. No. That is true, nothing works. Only Allah's fadl works. Only Allah's rahmah works when it comes down. Inna dhalika min azmi al-umur. Indeed, this is now the highest level and degree of resolution. The person is convinced that this is the ma'ruf and munkar. And then when you are patient, then you have azm. You have resolve in you. If you give up, then you don't have resolve. Allah will reward you for whatever it is you've done so far. But it's not the resolve that human beings need in order to make a difference. So Allah is saying through Luqman to his son, you need to have a very, very deep resolve in you. You must be determined to do what it is you want to do. That determination will help you and help others. But as you know, this is not for everybody. Very few people have this kind of azm and resolution and resolve that they're going to go all the way. People usually go 1 step, 2 steps, 10 steps. That's for Allah's fadl. Few people get to the end and remain who they are, what they are until the end. That's also from Allah's fadl. That's why Luqman says to his son, Inna dhalika min azmi al-umur. He doesn't say to his son that you must do this. And this, if somebody does this and takes it to its term, then that is from those affairs that are resolved by having a resolve. Azm. So all the prophets alayhi salam and then the messengers, the Rusul alayhi salam, they all had azm. And they took everything to its term, and no matter what happened to them, they would make sure that they always speak the truth and do whatever is needed to make sure the truth is heard. This is Luqman expressing his will and his knowledge, his pearls of wisdom to his son at a young age, so that the son is now ready for the world. Right? If you train your children this way, it may not be in the same words as Luqman's, but the framework should be the same, and the ideas must be the same, the ideals must be the same, that you do have to work towards what it is you want to do in life. If you do that, then you'll be okay. But if you don't want to work at all, then you will be left alone or behind with other people who don't really succeed in the world. But these are moral values and characteristics that Luqman is building. So he builds his trust in Allah, his belief in Allah, that is no shirk, and he develops the idea of being kind and generous towards one's parents, and also how to give nasiha to one's children and offspring. And now he also brings in the idea of Allah's knowledge. Allah's knowledge is overwhelming. He knows the details. So he knows the details of your life also. But there's a way that Allah brings about change in the world through His lutf and through His khubra. Allah is well aware of what people do. And then the formula for behavior in this world, one is a spiritual formula, that is through salat, and the other is a social formula, that is through al-amr bil ma'ruf wa nahyu 'anil munkar. And at the end, all this must be wrapped with sabr, patience and perseverance. If Muslims take heed of Luqman's nasiha here, they will be very successful, inshallah, and Allah will make it easy for them. These are the few words that we have been given the tawfiq to speak today, inshallah. Nasr al-Afiyah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for us and keep us under His comfort. Subhanallah, bihamdi, subhanakallah, bihamdik. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.